Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to be continuing the 5 more board game rules mistake series. This is episode 9, and some of the games on this list are some of my favorites, which is so crazy that I've been playing them wrong for so long. With that being said, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow, and for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the continuous support. Let's talk about some board game rules mistakes. The first rules mistake is found in Camel Up 2nd Edition, where you're going to be trying to make money by betting on a giant camel race. You'll be betting on the entire race as well as the individual legs, and it's a constant decision of, do I take a bet with limited information, or do I try to get more information but let everyone else have the choice before I do? This decision is made even more tense with the implementation of the movement rules for the camels, which are a wonderful gimmick that drives the entire experience and makes it an uproarious time. The camels in Camel Up actually stack on top of each other. If a camel ends its movement on the space where another camel is, they're going to stack, and then if that camel on the bottom moves, it carries the one on top with it. This can lead to some crazy outcomes with camels carrying other things, piling on top of each other, and makes the betting and calculating the odds that much more interesting. That leads us to the rules mistake, which was introduced in the 2nd edition of the game, these crazy camels. Notice this black camel is not going the same direction as the blue camel. That's because there's a black and a white camel that have been introduced, and they're going to be moving the opposite direction. They're instantly disqualified from the race, but they can still move. And when they move, just like the other camels, they'll carry everything that's on top of them. It's such a great twist because not only does it add an extra die to your dice pool, so you're never sure or guaranteed as to which dice are going to be moved, but you also have this chance of things moving back and forth. I really like this twist and this mechanism because it will eventually happen. You're going to have an intersection of these camels. But the rule that we got wrong here has to do with the die itself. The dice are essentially 3-sided, a 1, 2, 3, and then 2 of each. However, it's an actual 6-sided dice when it comes to the white and black camel, because some of those numbers will be shaded black and some of them will be shaded white. That determines which of the crazy camels you move. However, the rule we got wrong was once something is on one of those crazy camels, it doesn't matter what color you roll, you're always going to move the camel with something on top of it. This is a great twist because it's going to put a bit more pressure on the players because they know that if that crazy camel die is moved, that's going to affect the game somehow. For me, this rule is more of a lateral change as opposed to a huge game changer, and it's just going to change the way that you calculate the odds, now that you know that a camel that's on top of a crazy camel will move. Before, you had a chance of the crazy camels not affecting it, so I do like that it's giving you a bit more purpose and a bit more danger with those crazy camels. I really like this rule change, and make sure that when you're playing the new 2nd edition, you implement it as well. So that's the first rules mistake. If you roll that crazy camel die, and a camel is on top of one of the crazy camels and not the other, you move the one that has a camel on it, and you ignore the color. The next game is Libertalia, the Winds of Galecrest, where you play as a pirate ship captain, sending out your crew members onto an island to retrieve treasure, and then mess with all of your opponents by maybe taking out some of their crew members, or using special abilities throughout the course of the game. In the new edition of the game, some of my favorite components are the tiles that you'll be collecting from the island. They have different abilities that are tied to them through the use of a pre-printed board, or you can mix and match them by using some of the tiles that come in the game. This adds for a varied experience because you're going to have different interactions based on these different powers and abilities that you decide to use. Now, the rules mistake that we got wrong was very minor but had big implications, and that has to do with one specific tile. That is the hook ability. In Libertalia, the whole point of the game is to collect the most doubloons, and you'll do this primarily through the abilities of your cards and also those loot tiles that you'll be taking. Now, generally when you take a loot tile, you're just going to pick the one that gives you the most money, but there's a special loot tile here called the hook that gives you a choice, and I think this choice is a really good one. Now, when we were playing initially, there's one specific side of the hook tile that gives you the option to keep the hook tile and spend it for $2, or you could spend it at the end of the round in order to keep a crew member. We initially read that as you get to take one of the crew members that's on your ship and return it to your hand and be able to use it in the next round. This gives you some flexibility with your initiative and being able to use powers and abilities that might activate again, but it does take up some of your time and some of your actions and some of your ability to use some of the new characters that showed up in the next round. It seemed like the better play to just cash it in for the money because you know that that money is not going to be lost and it is the driving win condition. It's better to just get money now, or if you're not even wanting to take the hook because there's a better option, take that instead. However, we read the tile completely wrong. The ability of the tile says that you can spend it for 2 gold, or you can spend it to keep a crew member on your ship. Now, a lot of crew members will have recurring effects that will trigger, protect things, give you extra money passively throughout the rounds, and this is amazing because this allows you to set up combos and allows you to push abilities further than you may normally be able to. And if you get 2 hooks at the same time, you could even retain a combo that was working well for you in the last round and push it into that next round. Using the correct hook ability gives you some cool plays and potential combos that you can set up through the different loot tokens you're taking. So that's the rules mistake for Libertalia, the Winds of Galecrest. The specific loot tile for the hook, there's one that says that you can keep one of your crew members on your ship from round to round. It does not return to your hand. It gets to stay face up on the board. That brings us to our next game, Trajan, a Stefan Feld design where you play as Roman leaders who are going to be taking actions using a man-call system, trickling these pieces around your board. That can chain into combo actions as well as give you little mini games that you'll be playing. Each of these mini games has you collecting tiles or putting out people or sometimes gathering cards and ultimately scoring points in a variety of ways. Every action generally is going to score you a little bit of points, but one thing that you can do is this voting action on the bottom here, and that's going to give you scoring criteria at the end of each round. So what happens is you'll move up this vote track, and then whoever has the most votes at the end of the round gets to pick one of these scoring tiles. These scoring tiles will give you some condition at the very end of the game that you'll cash in for a big amount of points. If you get second place, you'll actually flip over the other scoring tile, so you still get some benefit out of it. I really like this system, and I like choosing my own scoring criteria throughout the game. It gives me a lot of different objectives that I have personally chosen to juggle. And that being said, when we played originally, this was the only way to get the scoring tiles. But the rules mistake that we got wrong was that you actually start the game with one of these scoring criteria. I really love this addition to the game, and it makes sense that it's there because it's going to give you some direction. It's a very small, minor rule, but it does make up for a big amount of points with about maybe 10 or 15 points that you can potentially earn, but it gives you one that you can plan for from turn 1. As mentioned before, it's going to give you a sense of direction and allow you to make plays and do your initial setup so you're actually building towards something. So that's my rules mistake for Trajan. Small, but very important and very impactful because it does extend throughout that entire game and experience. Make sure that you give each player an endgame scoring objective in addition to their other starting components. Up next, we have Long Shot, the dice game, and very similar to Camel Up 2nd Edition, you're going to be trying to earn money by betting on horses in a large horse race. But you can also earn money in a variety of other ways, whether it be owning a horse and seeing how well they do in the entire race, using special abilities on your cards, or completing some of the smaller concession minigames. The round structure has you rolling a pair of dice, and combined, they determine which horse moves and how many spaces that horse moves. Then every player is going to use the number of the die in order to take an action on their own little board. Now, one of these actions you can take is called the Jersey action, and this is going to allow you to actually mark right on to the cards. One thing that I've waited to mention is at the start of the round, when the horses move, they also give other horses a secondary movement. For example, let's take a look at Nitro Nelly here, number 8. Whenever 8 moves, 2 and 4 are crossed out on the bottom here, so that means that they're going to each get to move one additional space. This is going to favor certain horses and give them better odds, which means that the payout for Nitro Nelly here, if she actually wins, is she's going to get way more money than the others because she's moving less. I really like this system, and the Jersey action allows you to change it even more. When you select the Jersey action, you're allowed to cross off one of these boxes on the horse that was rolled. For example, if you rolled an 8 purple, you'd get to cross off one of the secondary movement boxes on Nitro Nelly here. And that means in the future, anytime Nitro Nelly rolls, the horse that you selected gets to move again. And you'll notice that 8 is even on this card, so if 8 moves, it can move an extra space. I love this because it's up to the players to modify and change the horse's odds, but doing so means that you're not actively betting or doing any of the other actions in the game. I think this is a cool system that's going to reward players for modulating and changing things, and it's going to change those odds drastically the more and more of those secondary movement boxes that you check. And that leads us to our rules mistake, and luckily I only played the game twice wrong this way. I played it several times afterwards with the correct rules, and it makes much more sense that way. Originally, when we read the rules for the game, we misinterpreted that when you chose the Jersey action, you had to draw the specific number of the horse that was rolled. For example, if you did an 8, you would cross the 8 out anywhere on any of the cards. Now this led to making you feel even worse about choosing the jersey action, because not only were you not putting money on this horse, but you were also increasing that horse's odds at doing better than all the horses that you actually were bidding on. It was a weird system and a weird twist, and it just makes much more sense when you have the jersey action in the way that it was actually supposed to be played. Go figure. So that's a really important rules mistake that we fix, and hopefully none of you run into that same thing. But whenever you use the jersey action, you can cross off any horse on that specific rolled horses card. Our last rules mistake is for Azul Summer Pavilion, and this is one that was taught incorrectly to me. And when you play Azul, you're going to be drafting these different tiles from these areas. You'll take them and then you'll allocate them onto your own personal scoring board to score points in a variety of ways. If you surround these different bonuses in Summer Pavilion, you'll also get access to some special abilities. I really like this idea, and there's this cool wild system that's employed in Summer Pavilion. Now that being said, the way that we were playing initially was when you drafted those tiles, you had to place them immediately onto your board. And that is not the case. When you're playing Summer Pavilion, you actually will take all of the tiles that you draft during the drafting phase and put them onto the side of your board, and then only then, when all of the tiles are gone, that's when you actually will allocate them onto your board and trigger the different bonuses. And the way that we were playing before, it was really difficult to get these larger numbers. Some require maybe 5 or 6 of the same color of tile, and it was almost impossible to do so. But now that we've actually united them and been able to add different tiles from different drafting turns, it made much more sense with setting up different combos and being able to score a variety of points in interesting ways. This rule makes Summer Pavilion a lot more open than the other Azul experiences, and it'd be one that I recommend if you want something that's a little less cutthroat than the other Azuls. So that's the rules mistake for Azul Summer Pavilion. Whenever you draft a tile, you do not place it right away. Set it to the side of your board, and then once all the tiles have been drafted, you'll take all of the things that you've collected and then allocate them appropriately onto your board. And those are 5 more board game rules mistakes. What do you think of the mistakes that we made in this video? Have you made any of these mistakes? What mistakes have you made recently in the board games that you've been learning or that you've been taught? I'd love to hear what you think. And I just want to give a big shout out to my friends Levi and Natalie for pointing out the rules mistake for Camel Up 2nd Edition specifically. I don't think I would have ever found it because it's a very small line of text in the rules, and I'm just really happy that they were able to highlight it. They've changed my gaming experience. So thank you so much for everything, and if you notice any rules mistakes that we have made in any of our video or any of our content, I'd love to hear you point them out as well. But thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being here. Side Game Strong.